Well, good morning, guys. Welcome back to Papaw's place. It's the time of the year I like. It's time to get the tomato plants in the ground. Y'all can see my tomato plants is getting so tall, and this ain't the tallest one. We'll look at some other ones over here that's taller than this. But it's getting to where the temperature is getting so hot during the day, and I'm gone all day. When I come in the evening, they're wilted down. But our night temperatures, last night I hope was our last coolest night in the 40s. Hopefully our nights is going to start staying in the 50s and above. But our days is getting up there, going to be in the 80s. So I got to get these in the ground, and they're going to be planted deep. And I'm going to get y'all over here close and show y'all what I do. Now y'all going to have to bear with the martins there, because they ain't going to hush up, and the rooster ain't going to hush up neither. So let me get y'all over here and show y'all what I got. I got my tomatoes kind of sitting around where I wanted them planted, and I'll tell y'all why I'm doing it this way. So on this row where I was just standing, on the other end is where my hydroponic buckets, if y'all ain't seen them, I'll be setting them up later. But I wanted to plant what I had in the hydroponic buckets on this same row. Each variety I got in the hydroponic buckets, I want one on this row. Because this row here has got a wire line up there about 8.5 foot. And that's where I'm going to be stringing everything from. So that's why you'll see me planting just a few tomatoes on this end of the row, and then I'm going to leave a spot for a cucumber, because I'm going to have a cucumber in the hydroponic buckets on the other end. And I may end up putting a squash in one. I ain't sure at this time. Now over here you're going to see my cages there, my teepee cages I call them. That's going to be a purple boy in each one of them. There'll be beans on my arch trellis. Then there's going to be red snapper tomatoes, 6 of them. And the reason I planted that one right there is because I messed up and let it break over toting it out here. As you can see how tall they done got. And that right there is leaning over. Only thing was holding them up in the greenhouse because they was all standing beside each other. But this one that broke over, it's buried about 1 foot, and I'll explain that to y'all in a little bit when we're planting one. I don't know what tomatoes is going to go here yet. Then we got another arch trellis here for my probably green beans or something other. And then on this end is going to be 4 Hycenator or STM 2255s by Cicada. I'm going to put one in each one of them cages, and then one in the ground. And I got me a little makeshift wire here running from cage to arch trellis that I can string them up on. So as y'all seen opening of the video, I use a drill, and here's a little auger bit, and you can purchase these. I'll put a link in the description below this video if you're interested, but this thing is very handy, especially when you want to go deeper. Then I use my post hole diggers to get on down there, and y'all see I'm about 16 to 18 inches deep. Next, I use calcium nitrate. And I'm going to throw probably a good tablespoon, I don't measure it, down in the hole. Then I'm going to put some potash, which is 0060. Probably not quite as much as the calcium, maybe a light tablespoon. And then I'm going to put some triple phosphate, which is your 0.450. So by doing that, I'm ending up with 15.5, 45, 60 NPK. And again, about a tablespoon or a light tablespoon. Then I'm going to go in with my rabbit manure. I don't know, probably a couple cups full, 8-ounce cups. And then I'll put a little bit of the soil on top of that, not much. Push it down a little bit. And then I go in with my tomato. And this here is the Celebrity Plus. And I got 2 of them, so I'm actually going to plant 2 on this row. And I don't think one of these is going to be in the hydroponic bucket, but I'm going to put 2 of them right here on this row anyway, because I got plenty of room. Now next, instead of going all back in with my clay soil here, in my trailer there I got some of my compost mixed with some soil that's a lighter soil to backfill with. Just pile me a little bit over here. And I'm going to be mixing this with my soil. But I want some of the lighter stuff down there deeper, so the roots will start growing out in that lighter soil than this heavy clay soil. Now I don't worry about the limbs down in the hole. You can break them off, or you can poke them down in the hole, whichever one you want to do. But a tomato plant is going to start making roots all the way up that stem where it's contacting the soil. But the reason I like planting mine so deep is because here in Louisiana, it gets so hot in the summertime, and when it gets hot, even though I got an irrigation system and I'm going to be feeding these with Master Blend tomato formula, once it gets so hot, you can't feed plants fertilizer. That'll just kill them. And if you overwater them, that'll kill them when it's so hot. And I've learned that you plant these tomatoes, because a tomato will send a tap root down about 3 foot deep. And if you plant these tomatoes deep, they'll get their tap root down there in that clay soil way down there deep. Even though it may not be no nutrients down there, they're going to be getting all their food, as I call it, from my irrigation. And once they go through that rabbit manure and hit what I put in the bottom of the hole, they'll get another boost. And then by that time, we're going to be coming into the high heat of summer, and that tap root will be down there and can keep the right amount of moisture for this plant to keep it alive. Because I like trying to keep my indeterminates and semi-indeterminates going all year. Now the hyphenator, that Sagati STM 2255, is claimed to be a determinate tomato. But I had one last year in that cage down there that went all year and had green tomatoes on it when we got our first frost in the spring. So you can keep semi-determinate tomatoes going. And if you plant them deep where they're send down that tap root, it's easier to keep them going without overwatering them and killing them when it gets so hot and you think they need water. Now I have to come back when I get done and clean all my extra soil up in my little trailer. But that's how I plant my tomato plants and why I like big tomato plants. Now I will say you can plant a tomato plant that's this tall right here today beside this one, and you'll get tomatoes same time you'll get them off of this. I ain't gonna get no tomatoes any faster by doing this. I'm gonna get a stronger plant that'll withstand the high heat of the summer. So now I'm gonna plant all my tomatoes. And it ain't no sense in y'all watching me, because it's gonna take me a little while to dig my holes. Then I'll show y'all when we get through, we'll string one up. Matter of fact, we're going to string this one right now. So to string my tomatoes, I'm going to be using these little tomato stringing hooks. And again, I'll put a link in the description below this video where you can get them. And I just unwind enough string. First thing I like to do is take a landscape staple. And I'm going to stick it in the ground right by this tomato. Just like this right here. Now you ain't got to do this part. You could actually just clip it onto your tomato. But in case we get a storm and some winds, to start out with, I like wrapping it right here. And then from this point on, I use tomato clips and clip it to my string. Now that I got my string on there and started, just unwind enough string. This one here is a little tall. I just can reach it. But then when you see you got it the right length, just wrap you up the extra right here. So it'll put just a little tension on that string. And I'm gonna have to get me something to stand on. The old swimming pool ladder here that come with the swimming pool works perfect. But I'm gonna put a little tension on my wire up here, and that'll keep a little tension on the string. And now we have one tomato planted and strong. Like I said, as it grows up, I'm gonna use tomato clips like these right here. And they got a little deal, you put them on your string and you put them around your stem of your tomato as they coming up and clip them together. And you can undo these clips if you want to remove them. Now, out of the tomato clips here, I get about 40% of them that I can use from last year and use this year. Another 40% of them, the sun makes them so brittle, you just throw them away. And the other 20%, when I start cleaning my garden up, I just don't even take the time to get them off. I just throw them away. That's where I come up with that 40%. So I'm finna see if I can get a few of my tomatoes in the ground this morning, guys, and then I gotta go mow a couple of yards. But hey, y'all didn't see my little trailer there I built. That's gonna be the handiest thing, because it's narrow enough. I can use it out here, helping me with my garden, even on my in-ground garden. But let me get to planting. Now, if you watched me last year, and you remember real well, I used gypsum in the bottom of these holes, and Epsom salt. But this year I ain't doing that because I'm gonna be in-ground injecting the master blend, which has calcium nitrate in it, and the Epsom salt. This one right here is gonna be a little trickier, but we gonna get it. Give them a little shot of water, and then we'll move on. I just got a bloom. I'm gonna go and pinch this bloom off. I don't want no bloom this early. Alright guys, that took a little longer than I was thinking it was gonna take, but I got 23 tomato plants planted, 1 Tommy T.O. We'll talk about that in a moment. And then I planted, I don't know, 12 or so marigolds. But one thing I did do different, once I got to the other end of the garden, that clay down there was pretty compacted. So I started adding about a tablespoon, and like I said, I don't measure, I just grab some. A tablespoon of gypsum in the bottom of the hole, and that helps break your clay soils up. I didn't start out using that because these holes was used last year and they were still softer down there in the bottom after I got through the top with that little drill. And speaking of drill, if I'd have been videoing a while ago, y'all would have had a good laugh, because inside one of these cages I was holding that drill and that son gun caught that clay, and when it did, it twisted it. It didn't just twist my wrist, it had my arm, because I had it stuck through one of these holes like this right here. It had me all twisted up and I couldn't let go of the drill. So if you use a drill with that little auger, be very careful. It works great when you're out here where you can use both hands, but when you're reaching through, and I know I should have planted my plants before I put my cages up, but several weeks ago when I wasn't doing nothing, I was just getting my garden set up the way I wanted, and I just went on and set the cages in place and got them fastened down. So let's look at the tomatoes now. They got the transplant shot pretty bad, and that one that I broke off, I don't know if it's gonna make it. And I don't have another red snapper to put in its place, but I do have an extra Roma tomato I can stick in that spot if it don't make it. I'm gonna give it a couple of days and see what happens. But let's go take a look. So right here in this cage here is one of the Italian ice. That's the little white tomato, supposed to be pearl white. I'm gonna have one growing in my hydroponics bucket, and I wanted one in the soil. But the reason I put this one down here, because it's kind of it's an indeterminate tomato, and on them smaller cherry style tomatoes, sometimes I don't prune them, I just let them go wild, and them cages work good for that. Of course, you see I got a marigold on each side of it. In this bigger cage here, that's my favorite tomato I grow every year. That's the Honey Delight with a couple of marigolds. In this other cage over here, that's the Tommy T.O. Well, I've never grown a Tommy T.O., so the other day when I was at the corner market, I seen them and I picked one up. Well, when I was in my greenhouse doing a little video, one of my viewers mentioned that you need 2 Tommy T.O.s in order for them to produce, which I didn't know that. And sure enough, I looked it up and that's what they say. Well, the very next morning I went to the corner market and she had done sold what she had, but she's supposed to try to get me another one on her next run picking up plants. I ain't cleaned my mess up with the dirt and stuff. I'm gonna try to let it dry a couple of days and hope I can blow it off with the backpack blower. But in these 2 cages on this end is the purple boys. Y'all know I always like and try to grow the Cherokees. Well, the purple boy is supposed to be a hybrid, supposed to taste like Cherokees, but easier to grow. So I'm giving them a chance this year. The next two, and when I'm saying two, I'm counting both rows, one here and one over there. That's the Florida 98. I ain't never grown. They supposed to be good in the high heat of the summer. You, of course, see I stuck a couple marigolds. And then, like I said, it's going to be the green beans or something on this arch trellis. And a couple more marigolds. And then we have 6 red snappers. Now, I grew them last year and I liked them. They hybrids. A determinate tomato. And that's why they put them here on these little short strings. Plus, I can Florida weave between this T-post and the edge of that arch cow panel there. That's what I was going to do, and then I decided to go on and put the string on them now. And if I need to later, I can do the Florida weave. So we got 6. And I ain't sure that's going to make it. Y'all see how bad it looks. It didn't break. It broke over, and it broke it right where it come out of the soil in the pot. But it didn't break off, so I just stood it back up, covered it up with dirt, hoping that it was still get enough life to start, and it might. We'll give it a couple of days and see. The next 4 tomatoes here is Roma tomatoes, but they're not the Romas that I normally grew that I had that I saved seeds from. These are Roma VFs, and I tell you the truth, I don't even remember where I got the seeds, but they was in my box, so I just planted them this year. And you can see they make beautiful tomatoes. Then a couple more marigolds, and then I ain't sure what bean I'm gonna put on that trellis there. A couple more marigolds, and then here on the end is 4 of the Hycenator STMs 2255s. And the reason I call that out by 2 names, because if you buy it from Haas Tools, it's called the Hycenator. That's what they let him name it. But if you buy it from other places that sell cicada seeds, you'll be looking for a STM 2255. Now, after I go mow a couple yards, this evening when I come back, we're going to, right here under this wire line, we're going to set up our hydroponic buckets. If you watch my latest video, I already put the tomatoes, 2 tomatoes, a cabbage, an eggplant. Right now I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm going to have 8 buckets. And I know when my cucumbers get big enough, I'm going to have a cucumber I'm going to string. And then my plans was, whatever I had in this bucket here, yeah, I had a Hycenator, 3 tomatoes in there already, because I had the Hycenator, Celebrity Plus, and then the Italian Ice, which the Italian Ice is all the way at the end in that bed. And then whatever else I got in that bucket, like the cucumber, I'm going to plant a cucumber here and have one on a string, stringing it. Now, I may not put a cabbage in the ground, but anyway, we'll get our hydroponic buckets out this evening and get them set up. So I moved over here to the shade, guys, but if you're an organic gardener and all you want to use is something organic, do the same thing I did in the bottom of them holes, but use like your feather meal, your blood meal, your bone meal. I don't really know that much about the organic stuff, but whatever you can get to get that NPK number, and put you some in the bottom of the hole, cover it up with soil, set your plant in there, and then when that plant starts growing and it gets bigger and that root starts going down in there, to me that gives it that super boost. When it's getting about that tall, it starts hitting that feed again, that good strong feed, and it'll go on and super boost them tomatoes up. Another thing I changed a while ago when I was planting, to help with the transfer shock, before I put the plant in the hole, and then I put some of that compost material around it, then I watered it in good, and then I capped it off with some soil. The first few I done, I put the soil on the top, and I'm like, well, it ain't soaking the water down there fast enough where it needs it, especially because they was a little on the dry side in the pots when I planted them today. So that's another little tip. Before you cap them off, that last layer of dirt, water them good, because the water will set in the hole and go on down to the roots that's already there in your potting soil that they was growing in. A lot of people ask me why I put marigolds, and if you're a new gardener you may not know it, but marigolds, they say, now I ain't got no way to prove it, helps deter a lot of different insects that's harmful to your plants. Like I said, I ain't got no way to prove that. I just plant them because I like planting them. They pretty. Something flowers helps attract your pollinators is one reason I do it. And then I like starting them because marigolds is so easy to start from seeds. It's one of the easiest flowers, I guess, for me to start anyway. So I always plant marigolds around my tomatoes, and then if I have a few more left, they'll be stuck around in pots or somewhere out here in the garden. But guys, at this point, I gotta go mow. But for y'all, I'll be right back. Alright guys, y'all didn't even know I left, did you? Well, I done went and mowed a couple yards and I'm back, but I still got some sunlight left. Right now, before we start getting our hydroponic buckets, showing y'all how they're set up, I'm gonna run the tiller down my potatoes here. So the other day, about 2 rains ago now, I got out here and I tilled this, fertilized my potatoes and had them healed up real good. And we got like 3 inches of rain, and 2 of it was like in 30 minutes. And I'm not exaggerating. And it washed all my soil that I healed up back off my potatoes. I don't think I'm gonna be able to heal them today, but what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna hit them a lick with my tiller. Try to dry the soil out in the middle. Maybe I can hit it again tomorrow and then heal my potatoes back up again. So some of you may be new gardeners and wonder what I mean by healing potatoes up. Well, or why you want to heal potatoes up. Me, the #1 reason to heal potatoes up is to pull loose soil up on them potatoes, and that keeps your potatoes that's growing in there, it gives them more soil on top of them so they won't pop out of the top of the soil and get sun scald. Or some people call that green potatoes, which ain't good for you. Matter of fact, I think they got poisonous. That's something you have to research your own on there. But anyway, you don't want green potatoes or sun scald potatoes. That's the #1 reason. Some people think that when you heal potatoes up, it actually make more potatoes. I think there's something to that, but I think it depends on what variety of potatoes you're growing. Now me, this first row right here is Purple Majesties. The second row right here is Red Lesotas. The third row is Yukon Golds, and the 4th row is Kennebecks. Now this soil's too wet for me to heal my potatoes today, but I run this tiller through it between the rest of the day. And then tomorrow I may hit it again in the morning before I go mowing. And then tomorrow evening when I get in, I'm gonna heal my potatoes. So what is healing? Healing's nothing more than just taking loose dirt. And like I said, it's too wet right now. And just pulling it up on them potatoes. It don't matter if you cover some of the leaves up or not. Because they're gonna grow right back through the soil. But you're pulling loose soil up on them potatoes, therefore you got more soil to cover your potatoes that's going to be growing there. And if you are planting a variety, it could turn into you making more potatoes. But I hit this again in the morning, because like I said, that's still wet. That little tiller just then wasn't cutting much. I need to cut a little more to pull up more. I don't care if it ain't but half of them potatoes sticking out after I hill them tomorrow. They're gonna grow right back through the soil. That's how you heal potatoes. Now let's go over here and let's take a gander at the hydroponic bucket setup. So guys, as y'all can see, the sun's starting to go down a little later here. We in the shade now, but I went on and got the 6 hydroponic buckets that I had in the greenhouse. I already had my started in them, and I showed a video of me doing that, and I'll attach it above here. You can go back and watch it. But this is a hydroponic buckets from B-Board. Now I got the 8 buckets set up, and ain't but 6 buckets here, because what I'm waiting on my last 2 buckets to set up. I'm gonna put a cucumber in one and string it, just like I got the strings already on my tomatoes here. This here's a cabbage I'm just doing for a test, because I've never done hydroponic growing before. This here's a black beauty eggplant, and this here's a hycenator bell pepper. Then we got the Italian iced tomato, hycenator tomato, and a Celebrity Plus tomato. That's why I planted them earlier today in the ground, so I can grow these hydroponically, grow them in the soil, and just see. And they both gonna be strung, which means I'm gonna keep a lot of the suckers pruned off and just see which one does the best. So what is hydroponic and how it works? But first I'm going to show y'all the setup, and like I said, if you'll go back and watch that other video, these buckets these are made to be inside a greenhouse or a high tunnel. Because when it rains, water can go in beside the plants here, and it can actually overfill your bucket with rainwater and drown your air roots. But I took these plugs right here, and that's a PVC cap and a PEX pipe with a screen on the end, and I drilled a hole and I made me a cap right here. And the reason I got the cap, I'm going to bring you over here close and show you. In case you missed the first video, that's nothing more than a 5-gallon bucket. This little blue tube here's got a little orange BB in it that floats, that shows me where my nutrients level is. And I'm using Master Blend Tomato Blend in all of these. This is the air hose, and it goes to the little bubbler pump, and I'll show y'all that in a moment. But when you get this kit, it comes with your line. But the way I'm lining my buckets up in a line, you're gonna have you some extra line, which I already had right here. I had some 1/4-inch drip irrigation tubing, because each individual line's got to run from the bucket all the way back to the pump. So when you lining these buckets up in a long line, the tube that come with it is not enough to set them up the way I'm setting them up. It comes with your clay pebbles here, which is nothing more than just baked clay, and you can reuse these for years and years. You just rinse them off and reuse them. Now again, go back and look at that video, and you'll see I started these tomatoes just in soil. And then when I started them, I set them down in here, put these clay pebbles around them, filled my bucket with my nutrients. Which is Master Blend tomato formula. And I use my little 4-in-1 tester here to test it. And y'all see them roots? The roots is growing down in that nutrients. So once the roots get longer, since I'm set up outside, I'll take this plug out. That way when it rains and fills this bucket up with water, it'll drain out and keep it at this level and won't drown your air roots. But right now I got to keep the plug on here, the cap, to keep the nutrients up there until the roots start growing further down into the nutrients. That's why I come up with this little setup myself. But like I said, this are meant to be in a greenhouse or in a high tunnel. Now one thing I'm going to try, I'm going to take some clay soil, pack right around here, make it cone up, so maybe when it rains a lot of that rain will run off and won't dilute my nutrients. But for my nutrients, the way mine's set up here, they also got a plug right here is a fill hole. Well, once my roots get long enough, I can take these caps off. All I got to do is watch this little orange bead. And once it falls about an inch or so below that, I mix me up some more nutrients and top it back off until it starts coming out that hole. Now I got my little watering jug with a water hose on here that fits right perfect in there to top it off. I can take my master blend, mix it up, test it, because I'm on an EC of about a 2 to 2.5, shooting for 2 to keep that topped off. Now, after a big old rain, I'll open my lid, stick this in there, and test my nutrients to see if it's got diluted any. That's why I'm saying I'm gonna pack some clay soil around here tight, because to me, it's getting oxygen in here by the bubbler. I don't know if y'all seen it bubbling in there. But y'all see the water bubbling? That's what the pump's doing. Shooting oxygen in there just like a bubbler in a fish aquarium. Now this is my first time of doing this aquaponics with the bubbler system here. I tried it one year in a barrel and I forgot to create me an overflow hole, and when it rained I had some cucumbers growing so well out of a 55-gallon drum and gonna just let them hang down. They was going so good making cucumbers. Well, then the rain come and filled my barrel back up, and it's drowned it out the air roots. But once the roots start going into nutrients, the roots above the water is air roots, and you can't drown them out. So this is all just a test and fun and games for me, because I just love trying different stuff. Does it make sense for me to be doing it out here? No, it don't. Just like I said, this is more for high tunnels and greenhouse, or somebody got a patio they want to do 8 buckets. I mean, you take 8 buckets and put tomato plants in it, that's a lot of tomatoes. So I'm just testing it out. Here's the little pump that comes with the V4 setup. Connects 8 hoses. Now I got 2 of them right here just plugged off right now until I get ready to put my other 2 buckets. And y'all hit that subscribe and hit that notification bell. Don't cost you a thing, and you'll see me when I set them other 2 up with my cucumbers. And I ain't sure, I ain't made my mind up what I'm gonna put in the other one. But y'all see me setting them up, run my hose from here all the way down to that bucket and set it up. Or you can go back and look at the video attached above, or either at the end of this video, and see how I set them plants in there. But what I'm gonna do, I got this sitting on a little brick. That way when we get rain, the pump won't be sitting in water when it's hard raining. I'm gonna just cover it with a bucket. Now I'll probably take a zip tie this bucket to this T-post so the wind can't blow it off. Just to keep my pump covered out of the weather, out of the sun, make it last for years. Them little clear plastics right here, them are check valves. That way when the air is blowing, it blows. If the pump goes off, electricity goes off, water can't come back and go up into your pump. Now guys, this will work without an air pump. The air pump's kind of just an extra deal that keeps the algae down in the buckets, especially if you're going to be trying to grow tomatoes, because they're going to be going for weeks and weeks. So it ain't going to matter if the electricity goes off and you didn't have no air bubbler going for 3 days in there. It ain't like your plants is going to die all of a sudden. As long as you keep the nutrients level right and keep the nutrients mixture right. So like I said, I'm going to zip tie that so it won't blow off, to keep my pump covered from the weather. Who knows, one day you may see old Papaw with a high tunnel. That way I can close it up and in the fall try to grow some tomatoes right on up to Christmas. Because usually what happens is we'll get a good hard frost that kills everything one night, and then it turns back summertime for another 6, 7, 8 weeks. But that one night wipes out all your tomatoes and peppers and stuff. So I have thought about getting me a little 10 by 20 greenhouse / high tunnel. Maybe setting it up on the outside garden. But you could utilize it by planting in the ground, or utilize this. I just like this. This here is just something that caught my attention, and I'm trying different plants in it just for experimenting this year. But as with everything you see me using, playing with, I put a affiliated link in the description below in case you'd like to check it out and purchase one. Maybe it's something interesting to you also. And on them affiliated links, it don't cost you no more by going through that affiliated link, but I do myself get a few pennies off of your money, but it don't cost you any more, and every little bit helps, and I greatly appreciate it. But I just think this is cool, and I had this trellis here set up, and then I said, well, I'm gonna get this bucket system, this hydroponic bucket system, since I got electricity right there to my brooder box. And I'm gonna have me 8 buckets of something here to compare against what's in the ground. Now I'm gonna have to keep these pruned, even the ones down there on strings. I don't let them go. All the suckers keep growing like I do in the cages and stuff. But you should get, the tomatoes you get ought to be bigger tomatoes by keeping the suckers pruned. And plus I got another little trick I'm gonna be trying out this year that I think is gonna give me, I ain't gonna say it's gonna give me a bigger tomato as far as trying to grow the biggest tomato. I'm just saying I think it's gonna help me give my average tomatoes, it's gonna be all big size slicing tomatoes. So that's something else y'all just have to tag along and see what I'm up to and if it's gonna work out. But guys, that's gonna be it for this video today. This is all I wanted to get done, was my tomatoes out. My marigolds out and get these buckets set out, because our temperatures is done getting so hot. Even with that little mini greenhouse I got over there open up, you come in the evening, everything's just wilted down. And I'm right now a busy time of year for me, so I ain't here all day to be watching it. So I think it's more harm for them to stay in that greenhouse a few more days than it is to deal with that 50-degree weather. Hope it don't drop below 50 no more at night. But if it is, the tomatoes, I'm holding off on my peppers. Tomatoes, they can deal with it as long as it don't go below 50 very long, especially if it don't get a frost. Lord help us, I hope we don't get no frost. But my peppers is still in the greenhouse. I'm gonna put them off as long as I can before I put my peppers out, other than that one right here in this hydroponic bucket. That one right there in that hydroponic bucket, it ain't gonna grow these nights as cool as they are. It's just gonna sit there and stand still. But then when it gets warm and hot, then it'll come on and go to growing. But as always, guys, hope y'all enjoy these little videos. If you do, please give me a thumbs up. Leave me a comment. If any of you ever done this hydroponic stuff or experimented with it or know anything about it or want to point something out and tell me, please leave it in the comments, because I'm just showing y'all what I'm doing and experimenting with. By no means do I know what I'm doing, because I've never done this before. But as always, hope y'all have a great day and a blessed week. God bless. See y'all next time.